Chapter 3. The Duchess opened her door. "You're late. Take it away. She saw Emily. I don't think she noticed me. "Oh, the sweetie!" She took him. "Aren't you a sweetie?" She gestured to the Ostumo. "Put it next to the bed. I have sweeties at home. Would you like me to tell you their names?" She was talking to Emily, but I nodded. She no longer looked petulant. I followed her into the room. "I have 10 sweet cats. Their names are Asha, Ishi, Ishi, Osho, Ushu, Ishi, Alka, Elke." The Duchess didn't seem to have much imagination. I said the next 2 names in my mind as she spoke them. "Ilke and Olko. Then there are my sweet kittens." She sat on her bed. Emily leaned against her chest and purred. I put the Ostumo on the night table and backed away. "I've named only 2 kittens thus far." She looked at me. I raised my hand in front of my face. She went on, "Do you have any suggestions for the rest? Sit down. There are 7 in the litter." I sat on the stool by the washstand. "Not there. There." She nodded at the chair by the fireplace, where I wouldn't have dared to sit. I took it. "Perhaps you can name them Anya, Enye, Inyi, Onyo, and Unyo."
"Those are possibilities. What's this sweetie called?"
"Emily, your Grace."
"Ah, then I will name the rest Amelie, Emily, and so on."
She tasted her Ostumo. I held my breath. Her complaining tone was back.
"It isn't hot. Moreover, it is weak. The kitten will have to do better when I come again. Would you like me to tell you which is my favorite, sweetie?"
She would come again. I nodded. The Duchess told me which was her second favorite and her third. 2 hours later, wild with worry and curiosity, Mother opened the Duchess's door a crack. There was the Duchess snoring in her bed, Emily curled up in the crook of her arm, and there I was, sleeping in the Duchess's chair. The Duchess became a regular guest at the inn. She remained fractious and difficult to please, but she adored Emily and tolerated me. In the year of forest songs, when I was 14, I discovered a new way to sing. I was cleaning the falcon chamber, which had been occupied by a carrion merchant, Sir Peter of Frel. After I dusted the mantelpiece, I went to the washstand. The basin was there, but not the pitcher. As I sang, "Where is the pitcher?" I began to hiccup. I sang, "Did Sir Peter," hiccup, "steal the pitcher?" I knew the tricks of less than honorable guests. "But," I sang, "it's very large for stealing." I opened the top drawer of the bureau. "Empty." "Then where is the—" I hiccuped. My next word, pitcher, seemed to come from the center of the canopy over the 4-poster bed. The hiccup had flung the word across the room. How odd. I opened the middle bureau drawer. Empty. I opened the bottom drawer. Aha! Shards of pitcher. Sir Peter, hiccup, hid his crime. An honorable guest would have confessed to breaking the pitcher and would have paid for the damage. "Sir Peter is a—" I hiccuped again. "Scoundrel" seemed to issue from the flower pot on the window sill. I stopped cleaning and began a love song that was on everyone's lips lately. "From your roses I've won just a—" I tried to fling the word thorn from my throat the way the hiccup had flung scoundrel, but it wouldn't go. I sounded half strangled instead. I tried again and failed again. I went on with the song. "In your wide eyes I've seen only scorn. From your heart's song I've heard but a—" I hiccuped. Sigh emanated from the corner by the door. I stayed in the falcon chamber, not cleaning. I couldn't stop trying to fling my voice. My hiccups passed, but I kept trying, and failing. Mother found me there and scolded me soundly. I didn't tell her what I'd been doing, because it would have sounded ridiculous. I said I'd been wool gathering and returned to work, but from then on, whenever I had a minute of solitude, I tried again. I knew my stomach had done most of the work, so I pulled it in hard, trying to get enough thrust. For my pains I gave myself a sore abdomen. Still, I kept at it, and sometimes I thought, almost. Then, after a month, I had my first success. I was cleaning the dove chamber, and I made the word apple sound as if it was coming from the door 2 feet from my feet. Apples were the fruit I liked least, but they were delicious to sing and delicious to fling. I tried again and failed, but on the next attempt, apple rang from the window sill. After that I made swift progress. Soon I could send my voice wherever I wanted, within reason. I couldn't send it a mile away. My next endeavor was to learn to fling my voice without moving my lips. This required weeks of practice, touching my face to make sure it was motionless. I might have progressed faster if I looked in a mirror, but I never looked in mirrors. I named the new skill illusing. I was a good mimic, so I added mimicry. Alone in the stable, I learned to illuse father's voice, speech or singing, and made it come from the hayloft. I could conjure mother's voice answering from the yard outside, and I could call forth a whinny from an empty stall. I could even duplicate the creak of the stable door when it was opened. My first demonstration was to Arita, although I hadn't planned it that way. She and I shared the hummingbird chamber. Her bedtime was 10, while I was always up until midnight and later, washing dishes while mother and father and my brothers cleaned the tavern and prepared for the next day. It was a Saturday night. The tavern revelers had been boisterous. When the dishes were done, I climbed the stairs, weary and angry. A drunken guest had called me an ogress. If I'd been an ogre, I could have persuaded him I was beautiful. I could have eaten him and made him think he was being caressed by the comeliest maiden in Aortha. I may have been as ugly as an ogre, but I had none of their persuasive powers. Arita awakened when I came in. She sat up in bed. Did anything happen? Did we get a new Master Ikolni? This was her constant, eager question. Master Ikolni was a legendary guest who'd stayed with us only once, long ago, when father's grandfather was a boy. As soon as Master Ikolni had arrived, every mirror in the feather-bed shattered. No guest ever ate as much as he did, and the cook never cooked as well, before or after, as she had for him. Master Ikolni had paid in gold yorthies and tipped lavishly, but every coin melted into air the day after his departure. Arita craved the excitement of such an interesting guest. Tonight I had no patience. Hush, I'm too tired. Oh, she plopped back down with a thump. I undressed to my shift and got into bed next to her. I kept picturing the guest's flushed, foolish face. What do you wish? Arita sang the beginning of a rhyming game. She was a pest. Shh! Father will come. I'm too exhausted to sing. I'm not, she sang more softly. I wish for a moat and a boat and a float. I wished she'd shut up. I was silent. I wish for a twister, a blister, a wide-awake sister. If you don't hush, I'll smother you. I felt tears coming. I wish for... Can't you just this once? I squeezed my eyes shut. I wouldn't let the taunt make me cry. Stop being a pest. No. I wish for... I hate you. She was silent. I felt awful. A tear got out. Now I'd made Arita unhappy. I don't hate you. She was silent. A sob got out. She sat up. I'm sorry. She patted my shoulder. I should have guessed. I raised myself on one elbow. My tears were flowing now. It's not your fault. I despise them. They think I don't have feelings. I wiped my eyes on our quilt. Can a dragon judge Ostumo? It was what she always said. It meant that louts had no idea of the finest things. She added, You have the most beautiful voice. You do too. Not like yours. And you always smell nice, like fennel seeds. Fennel? Fennel. Warm and savory, and your eyes are gorgeous. Thank you. My eyes are my only acceptable feature. And I wish I was as tall as you. You look like a statue. I'd have given anything to be as neatly and daintily made as Arita. Besides, her voice took on an adult tone that I disliked. Besides, how one looks isn't important. You're proof of that. I was proof that looks were important. Rita could say they weren't only because she was pretty, but I didn't want to quarrel with her twice in 5 minutes. We were quiet. She said, "I love you." I touched her arm. "I know. Good night." But I wanted to make amends. I used a tiny mouse voice coming from the floor near the bed. "I love you too." I used a wet, fishy voice coming from the basin. "I love you too." She popped up. "What?" I used a dry, raspy voice coming from the fireplace. "I love you too." "What's making—" I put her hand on my throat so she could feel the vibration. I used a chirpy voice above our heads. "I love you too." "Tell me what you're doing. Don't just keep doing it." "All right." I told her about her losing. I put one of her hands back on my throat and one on my stomach while I tried to explain how I did it. A quarter hour later I went to sleep, and she stayed up the rest of the night trying to lose. She kept trying for the following week with no success. At the end of the week, I showed the technique to the rest of the family. None of them could do it either, although each of them tried to learn. Mother and father urged me to lose at the next village sing. They were proud of my voice, and they wanted me to stand out. This once, in a way that was to my advantage. But I decided to keep my losing a secret. If I revealed it, the villagers would try to learn too. I'd have to explain how I flung the sound out. I'd have to address them all. Singing to them was easy. Speaking was hard. Worst of all, I'd have to show them how I moved my belly. It was too mortifying to consider.